Ori început. Bine, ce se va întâmpla? Să vedem dacă găsăm.
Lucrezi din greu pentru ei, dar ei lucrează pentru tine, fiindcă
on logistics of the entire world, and this region and the mediators are trying to push for this light at the end of the tunnel that Donald Trump every week shines a light on, but really hasn't been able to deliver. So it appears that this could go in that direction. We've been here before. We'll just have to wait and see when Donald Trump says that it could be Tuesday or Wednesday when there could be a deal that could be signed. Well, that has been months in the making, and unless it happens as in diplomacy, they say, unless everything is agreed upon, nothing is agreed upon.
And we still don't know, of course, how Israel is going to respond to these Iranian attacks. Osama bin Javed, thank you so much for now. Let's turn now to our guests to discuss this a bit further. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is General Mark Kimmett, a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs, and also in Washington, D.C. is Nigar Mortazavi, a senior fellow with the Center for International Policy. Thank you to the both of you for joining us here tonight. You heard the words there from my colleague here in the studio, these maximalist positions that both sides are putting forward. General, let's analyze that a bit further. This is day 100 of this conflict, and now tonight you've got this major military escalation taking place. Who's to blame?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want two things. Number one, 11 missiles fired from Iran is certainly not maximalist, and it's certainly not crawling up the ladder of escalation. The one thing I would go back on is you talked about this chain of events. You were very careful not to mention one of the important issues in the chain of events, which is as Israel and Beirut signed the ceasefire agreement, it was firmly rejected by Iran and firmly rejected by Hezbollah. So unfortunately, Per, there is not a ceasefire if one of the belligerents is still fighting. And candidly, Hezbollah is making a mistake because they are giving Israel the legitimacy to continue fighting because Hezbollah refuses to sign the ceasefire. And as a proxy of Iran and a cat's paw of Iran, Iran is rejecting the ceasefire as well. So I don't know why we continue to focus on this notion of a one-way ceasefire.
Nigar, I want to come to you in just a second, but first, though, let me follow up on that with you, General. You're talking about how Iran and Hezbollah rejected the ceasefire. Well, neither of those parties were there at those conversations in the U.S. when the U.S. helped broker those ceasefire talks between Israel and Lebanon. So why would Hezbollah accept a ceasefire that it was not even a part of?
Well, remember, the President of the United States talked to Hezbollah, and over the phone, Hezbollah agreed to those terms. Now, whether that's true or not, we can ask Barik Ravid. He seems to have daily phone calls with the president, but it was clearly suggested that there was a phone call between the president in Israel and the president is Hezbollah, which is unprecedented because a U.S. president has not talked to a terrorist in recent memory. So, according to the phone call, according to the United States president, Hezbollah did agree to him, and then soon after rejected the terms of the ceasefire, probably at the insistence of Iran.
Nagar, your response to that, those words from General Mark Kimmich, that it's in fact Iran and Hezbollah's fault, what we're seeing happening tonight?
Well, looking at the big picture, there has been a ceasefire for almost 3 months now, and Israel violated the ceasefire just hours after it was reached between Tehran and Washington with a massive attack and a massacre on Beirut. It's something that the Israeli, right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu has done right before ceasefires, right after ceasefires, trying to torpedo the process, trying to torpedo potential deals. We now also see from the leaks coming out of the White House, the president having angry phone calls with Benjamin Netanyahu, potential reporting of Israeli espionage on U.S. or spying on U.S. negotiators. Israel is not happy about U.S. and Iran making a peace deal and essentially ending this war. And this is one way, it's trying various different ways on trying to escalate the war, using opportunities right before, right after the peace deal, if it's going to be concluded, and also try to torpedo or sabotage the process. So this is very much as part of that pattern. From Tehran's viewpoint, they have said all along that this peace process or the peace deal, the final deal for them, is going to be regional, comprehensive, and that mainly includes their ally Hezbollah. Hezbollah entered the war with Tehran, and Tehran wants to fold them into their peace deal, which actually makes it more complicated and difficult for Iran, but this is sort of the alliance that they want to keep. And I think this is them sort of drawing that red line. They have tolerated Israel's attacks on southern Lebanon, sort of the back and forth conflict with Hezbollah in the south, but earlier this week, they drew a very clear red line as far as attacks on Beirut when it was reported Israel wants to again attack Dahia, and then Tehran sent a warning to Washington, and President Trump was reported that told Benjamin Netanyahu to not do it, and that was, and they held off. But then again, on a Sunday night came the attack, and the Iranians are showing that they're serious about keeping Lebanon into the process, and also that red line as far as Beirut and its suburbs.
General, is Donald Trump losing control of Netanyahu at this point? He told Netanyahu not to do it, and he still did it.
Well, first of all, I agree with Nagar on most of the things she said, but let's review the bidding.
Haideți, fraților, până am început războiul din răsărit, ceea ce era inevitabil.
But it's also the area with the Hezbollah headquarters. That's the area where Hassan Nasrallah was attacked and killed. The Dahia doctrine has been around since 2006, which is the doctrine of Israel, which says if we're attacked, we are going to respond far worse than we were attacked. I think people also need to take a deep breath and understand that, yes, Israel attacked Dahia. To their credit, Iran only fired 11 rockets, and we've seen this before where there's sort of, in their view, and in many's view, a proportionate response to the Israeli actions. I believe that's why President Trump weighed in, but I think it's also important to understand that while, and you and I have talked about this before, while Israeli and U.S. objectives in this war may be similar, they're not identical. President Trump wants to get a peace deal. President Trump wants to sign a nuclear agreement. And the Iranians have been very careful to avoid that by, first of all, taking the Strait of Hormuz, which deflected from the whole issue of a nuclear negotiation. And then they very cleverly coupled the Lebanese issue. So yet again, when we have been insisting on decoupling, the Iranians have insisted on coupling, because what that does is yet again divert from the whole issue